Hello and welcome to MalMakes. Today we're going to talk about all the ways you can shift a hue with acrylic paint. This video is going to connect all of the information from the first 3 color mixing videos: the color wheel, value, and intensity. Now again, I'm going to be working on canvas board, but if you'd like to do this in your sketchbook or anywhere else that's easy to have on hand as a reference while you're painting, that's going to work fine. Wherever you would paint acrylic paint, you can do this exercise. Also for layout, you can lay yours out like mine is. I have 8 spokes with 4 circles off a centerpiece, but you can also just kind of freehand this, where we're going to start with our center color and then just put dots of paint for each one of the colors we're going to be making. The first thing you want to do is pick a hue and fill in the center circle with that color. Now, as a refresher, a hue is any color that's going to be fully saturated. Basically, it's anything on our plain color wheel, and you can do any color you'd like for this. I do find that primaries and secondaries are a little bit easier for this exercise instead of like the tertiary colors. I'm going to be using green for mine, but you're welcome to use any hue. Because I have to mix up my hue, I want to make sure I have enough to fill in almost every circle on here. Everything except the outer ring is going to end up with some ratio of the hue mixed into it, so I'm going to use my cyan and my yellow and mix up a good bit of green. In the first video, we talked about filling in our color wheel using only 3 primary colors. Now that's the first way we can shift a color, is by making it a slightly different hue on the color wheel. So on the top right spoke, that's this one right here, I'm going to be taking my green hue and shifting it into a different hue. And how I want to do that is looking at my color wheel and figuring out which color is going to work for that. Now I can't take green and mix it in with some of these colors down here because that won't shift the hue. As you know from intensity, if you mix the complement, it's going to tone down the intensity, not shift the hue. So I kind of need to stay in this range. And those colors are called analogous colors, and the definition for analogous is when colors are next to each other on the color wheel. So what I do is I count 2 to the right and 2 to the left. So my analogous colors for this part of the spoke are going to be yellow and blue. If your hue was something like red, your colors for this would be orange and violet. I'm using yellow for this top right spoke, and I'm going to fill in this outer larger circle with yellow. Now I did say blue was also analogous, and we'll be getting to blue in just a moment. Each of these spokes is going to be a scale between our hue and whatever color is in the outer circle. So this spoke here on the top right is going to be different ratios of yellow and green. In the middle is going to be half and half. The one closest to green will be mostly green, and the one closest to yellow will be mostly yellow. So I'm going to mix up all 3 of those circles and then fill them in. I'm going to label each spoke with the relationship it has to the hue and how it's affecting it. So the relationship between yellow and green is analogous, so it has analogous, and it's shifting green's hue, so I've labeled it hue. Now I'm going to be doing the same thing with blue, which is the other analogous color for green, in the top left spoke. In the second video, we talked about value. So on the left and right spokes, we're going to be doing a value scale. On the right spoke, I'm going to be putting white in the outside circle and having light green, lighter green, and lightest green. This spoke is labeled tint and value. The relationship is tint because these colors are all tints of our hue. Tints are when you take white and add the color into it, and it's value because it's changing the value of our green. Now we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side, but instead of white, we're going to be using Mars Black. The opposite term for this side of the value scale is shade. So these are all shades of our hue, and they're also affecting the value. In the third video, we talked about the two ways that you can change intensity, and the first way was by mixing two complementary colors. These are colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. And our complementary color for green is red. So I'm going to fill red in this top circle, and then the middle one here of the small circles is going to be my pure 50-50 mix of both. If I have perfectly mixed colors, this should be a true neutral color that doesn't skew one way or another. Red's relationship to green is it's a complement. It's changing green via saturation, so it's getting more and more desaturated the closer it gets towards red. Now, in the intensity saturation video, we also talked about the other way to lower intensity, which is adding gray to our hue. So in the bottom spoke, I'm going to put a 50% gray, and then towards the green, it's going to be a gray green, a grayer green in the middle, and then on the bottom, it will be the grayest green. When you mix gray into a color, it becomes a tone. So that's the relationship with this spoke and our hue. And it's changing its saturation, so it got labeled with that too. Now our last two spokes, I'm going to kind of combine some of these. On the bottom left, I'm going to mix my 50% gray with some black to make a dark gray and show the range between them. And on the right, I'm going to mix white with our 50% gray and show the range between those. Now, because it's still a gray getting mixed with our hue, it's still considered a tone, but in addition to changing the saturation, it's also changing the value. With all of the spokes filled in, you can see the huge variety of greens we made just adding a couple colors to our palette. Now, there's not really a great way to show this for every hue at one time on a flat surface, unless you did a ton of these snowflakes, one for each hue. But the thing I found online that I like a lot is the Muncell color system. It's a 3D space trying to model all of the colors in a globe shape. So if you imagine the Earth or like a globe, around the equator would be where all of the hues are, all of the color wheel colors. And if you move east or west, you might start like where red is, and then like if you move east, it would be red, orange, orange, yellow, orange, orange as you go around the equator. Now, if you move up towards the North Pole, all of your colors are going to get lighter. They're going into a tint, and at the very top would be white. And if you go south to the South Pole, everything would move towards black and get darker. And if you move towards the core, everything is going to go towards a gray. So the closer you are to the core, the grayer your hue is going to be. And you can kind of like move inwards and also up, so you would get some of these light tones, and you could also do the same thing moving down to get some of the dark tones. Now that's the best way to kind of understand the vast variety of colors you can get. It does not account for adding in a complementary color to change your hue, but it is showing basically everything else on this snowflake shape. Understanding all the ways you can change your hue isn't just helpful and necessary for painting, but it can also help you in different forms of art. For example, in programs like Photoshop, they have a color picker, and this is the H color picker, which stands for hue. And on the little square you have, your hue color is going to be in the top right corner. And you can adjust the hue by moving the rainbow slider up or down until you get to the right hue you want. Your tints are going to be across the top going towards the left. Your shades are going to be going down the right side. And the closer you get towards the middle or towards the left, you're going to start to get into your different tones. Now, the closer you have your circle towards like the top of the middle, it's going to be lighter tones, or towards the bottom is going to be darker tones, and all the way towards the left is going to be your grayest tones, your most desaturated version of your hue. Next time, we're going to take all of this knowledge and use it to match perfect colors. This is for when you're working on a painting and you run out of a color you need, and you need to match it and make sure it's perfect. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of MalMakes, and I'll see you again here for another MalMakes video.